update on what is happening with CISPA. The last time we reported on it, the House Intelligence Committee had passed it overwhelmingly, and now it turns out that the House has passed it overwhelmingly. And you can kind of understand why when you take a look at the number of companies that have supported CISPA. So the funding behind CISPA is incredible. Let me give you some specific numbers. Since 2011, CISPA allies have spent $605 million in lobbying. When it comes to lobbying in Congress for CISPA, there are 52 different groups that have donated at least $100,000 each.
So that's, of course, a ton of companies putting in a ton of money. But I'm sure that the House, Anna, voted their conscience, not because they got over $600 million. No. That would never affect their vote.
So that's obviously something that is discussed on the show all the time. Money corrupts politics, and of course these politicians are looking out for their corporate interests, right? So there are companies like AT&T that are very supportive of CISPA, and part of the reason why they're so supportive is because they want to be able to gather your private information and be able to give it out to government agencies without worrying about any type of lawsuit against them. So this is in their best interest, and of course it's up to the people to fight against it. When it comes to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, by the way, they spent $163 million in supporting it. AT&T spent $34 million in supporting it.
Now, remember that the government, when they did warrantless wiretapping, they did it through companies like AT&T and Verizon. And then there was a chance that they were going to get sued tremendously, and then the government passed a law saying they're not allowed to be sued on this issue. And so you can see why AT&T thinks, look, the government is always getting sketchy information, and I'm giving it to them, and we're violating everybody's privacy. So I'm going to spend a lot of money to make sure I don't get sued for that, among other things. So, and this would be a law that would help them to facilitate this. And it also allows the companies to share information with one another, our private information, none of which they should have access to in terms of the government needing a warrant in the old days, back when we followed the Constitution. But CISPA, of course, wants to destroy that.
Now, of course, CISPA, they attempted to pass CISPA last year. And the reason why it didn't pass is because the Senate rejected it, and also Obama was threatening to veto it. And part of the reason why is because Obama said that he didn't like the fact that private companies were going to give government agencies private information. I'm not really sure I'm buying what Obama's saying there. But he said, I would be willing to sign it if these private companies found a way to make sure that you can't, like, let's say you hand over private information to the government wouldn't be able to identify the certain individual, right? Now this new CISPA law, or bill I should say, is not very different from last year's CISPA legislation. It's actually very similar. There were Democratic members of the House that were going to include amendments that would, let's say, ban employers from asking for Facebook or social networking site passwords from their employees. And no, turns out that the House decided to block that type of amendment.
So that's interesting. I reported last week about two of the different amendments. Alan Grayson had said, okay, let's just do an amendment. You guys all say this doesn't violate the Constitution. So obviously you won't mind if we put in a sentence there that says, this should not violate the Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution. And they're like, no, wrong again, Bob. Okay. We'd like to violate it, so we're not going to put that sentence in. And then Adam Schiff came with an amendment saying, look, if you're going to share the information, at least don't attach the identity to the information, because you don't need that unless you've got a warrant and you say, hey, I'm looking after this guy, and I want to make sure that I've got his specific info. So you don't need to violate people's privacy if you just put that amendment there. They're like, wrong again, Bob. No interest in the amendment.
Yeah.
And this is a new one where an employer could perv out and be like, okay, I would like the passwords of my employees and use them on Facebook, emails, etc. And
it would be fully legal. It would be, yeah. And so since that amendment was blocked, let's say CISPA does pass the Senate and does get signed by Obama, that means that employers can legally ask you for your passwords on Facebook. So look, when you're on Facebook and you're interacting with your friends, especially if you're doing a direct message, a private message, whatever, you think that message is going to be private. You don't think that your employer is going to read it. Now, just a quick example of how little funding there is when it comes to opposition to CISPA. Lobbying in Congress against CISPA totaled to about $4.3 million in total. Now keep in mind that funding in favor of CISPA was $605 million in lobbying.
So my favorite number there is for every dollar spent fighting against CISPA, $38 was spent in favor. Gee, I wonder why it passed with flying colors in the House. So all these rights might be taken away from you. Now, they say, look, Obama might veto it, so don't sweat it. Sweat it, okay? Because here's what they'll do. They'll go to the Senate. If they get enough corporate sponsors giving enough donations to the senators too, they'll change one or two small things, and then Obama will say, oh, well, you know, they addressed my concerns, so go ahead and, you know, and pass it. So right now, there's a lot of reasons to be concerned because the House, again, passed it really, really easily. And now it goes to the Senate. Now, time for a tiny bit of nerd alert because there's one little final twist on this, which is amazing. So, bloop, 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 Kim Horcher.
All right, well, we've talked about this before, and just now that it's all about money, right? And we've also discussed Representative Mike Rogers, who has been a big pusher of this bill. He's said that, what was it, that, oh, there's no companies in America that opposes, which is false, and that implies that companies are more important than people. But nevertheless...
yeah, that was my favorite line in this whole debate, when he said, well, I don't understand. All the companies agree. So, well, how about the people?
Right,
how about the American people?
Well, they don't represent people.
Yeah,
you
so,
know that.
yes.
So he has a wife by the name of Christy Clemens Rogers, and until recently, she was the president and CEO of Aegis LLC. That is a security defense contractor company, and somehow they secured a $10 billion contract with the State Department.
Oh, no. On cybersecurity.
Yeah.
And Mike Rogers pushed a bill on cybersecurity. And then his wife's company got $10 billion. Wild coincidence. I'm sure that's the first time it's ever happened in the U.S. Congress. And I'm sure that Mike Rogers didn't think about his own personal wealth at all. Because if there's one thing I know about Congress, they are honorable gentlemen.
Well,
that's what I hear on TV all the time.
She did leave that position, and now she's the managing director of federal government affairs and public policies at Manat, a big lobbying firm, and she will be serving on the executive level for problem solving in the defense and homeland security sectors. So if CISPA passes, she stands to make a great deal more money.
Huh. Golly gee, you know, Anna, I'm beginning to wonder if these are coincidences. Man, this is how we get royally screwed.
Yep.